friends, it's me Snakies and welcome to a brand new video. In this video I'm going to be remaking how to use layers in FireAlpaca tutorial and improving it with better instructions and more clearer details. The other difference is I'm going to be using a script and using Medibang, which is FireAlpaca, but it looks cooler and has a small bit more options. Medibang is free and it was made by the same people that made FireAlpaca. FireAlpaca is better for beginners, but if you're looking for something that's a tad more advanced, I suggest Medibang. This tutorial will also work on FireAlpaca, just in case you want to use that program. I will have both links in the description where you can download them both. You can choose which one you want. In this video, we are only going to talk about the layers panel, which is pretty much mandatory for digital art. If you're digital painting though, that's a whole other can of worms I won't go into in this video. If you're doing normal digital art with line art and shading, this should help you quite a bit. For this tutorial, I will be drawing Tsunami from Wings of Fire. I referenced the pose from Shadow Crystal on Deviantart. I will leave a link to that in the description as well. So there are going to be tons of links in the description. Where is my pen? Here it is. Okay, found it. I'm going to go through each layer button on this panel. So the first button is the add layer button, which is basically adds another layer to your drawing. So if I were to click it, bang, it adds another layer, an untitled layer to my drawing. You usually want to do this as soon as you start a new drawing, so you don't want to have your sketch on your first layer, just in case. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it does help a lot more with organization, I think, in the long run. There's also an add 8-bit layer button and an add 1-bit layer button, these two right here. There's also an add halftone button, so basically if I were to add these, it'd give me more options and stuff. So this is a little bit more advanced for something like if you were doing a manga, which you can do manga illustrations in Medibang. I won't be going through these in this video, I'm just going to be doing the basics, so because this is for beginners. The next button is the add folder button. Folders are good when you have a lot of layers on your drawing, so I added a folder here. Basically it helps you organize your layers. To use a folder, you add a folder. You can title it if you want. I recommend titling your layers and folders as soon as you get them. Except for this, I'm just going to title it folder because I'm not going to use folders in this drawing. To add layers to your folder, all you do is move the layer by clicking and dragging into the folder. You can also add layers into the folder just by having the folder selected and then pressing the add layer button. Pressing the delete also deletes the entire folder, just a heads up. So if you want to delete a folder but not all the layers within that folder, you just move the layers you want out of it. The next button is the duplicate your layer button. You can do this by pressing the button down there or pressing Command J or Control J if you're using a PC or Windows. And that will basically add another layer to your drawing. So now I have two sketch layers right there. The last two buttons on this bottom panel here are the merge layers and the delete layer. Delete is pretty self-explanatory. I've used this button many a times in this video already. But the merge layer will basically have the layer you have selected and it will merge it with the layer you have underneath it. So if I were to draw a happy face right here, it will be on layer 3, not on the sketch layer. I can remove it like that. So if I want to merge these layers, I could just press this button and now it's become layer 3 and they're on one layer. So that's basically what merging layers do, and that's what all the buttons do, so yay! Next I will talk about the option above your layers. So opacity. Opacity is basically just changing the transparency on your layer. So you see mine is at 100% opacity right now. If as I go lower and lower, it becomes more transparent until it goes to 1%, which is basically you can't see it at all. So for opacity, It's really good after you have your sketch of what you're going to draw. You want to lower the opacity of your sketch, add another layer, and I will name it just for the sake of this video. And you can add your layer above this layer so that it doesn't screw with your sketch. You can also use opacity for a bunch of different kinds of effects for your drawing. So say I want to add like a blue hue to this, like she's in water. I could just color this all blue, and then I can lower the opacity. So it gives it like a nice blue highlight here, which, I mean, looks better if it's all colored and done already, but you know, you can always experiment with your layers and with the opacity, because it's really fun to add effects to your drawings. The blending drop-down menu is a little bit more complicated. There are a bunch of options here, just basically effects for your individual layers. So basically, I'm going to be going through the ones that I use the most. If you want a more in-depth review, again, this is for more of a beginners, so I'm going to be going through the ones that I use the most and which ones I think are better for beginners to use. So I'm going to go with multiply first. Multiply is good for adding shading. So when you want to shade something, which is a ball, I could draw the ball right here. Can add another layer and put in multiply. This will basically give the color I have selected a darker hue, which is good for adding shading. Now this looks like black because it's a darker color. For shading, I like to generally use a lighter color because it doesn't make the shadow as hard. It depends on what you're really going for on your drawing though. So if I want something a little bit softer, more subtle shading, I would go with the multiply on a lighter color. If I undo multiply and just turn it to normal, it gives me the color that I originally used. Normal is just normal. It doesn't change anything to your drawing. Overlay is a different story though. Overlay is good for on lighter colors for adding highlights to your drawing. So there's a little highlight on my bubble here. If I use all the way white, it gives the color it gives the white a hue of the layer that's underneath it. So I don't have to use straight white, because again, if I wanted to do it normal, it would just be white. This again gives it a nice softer highlight. When I do highlights, I like to use the airbrush tool, which is basically a super basic way of doing a subtle highlight. So like that. Next, I'm going to go for add. The add option is good for lighter colors again, and this is really good for adding if you want to add glow to something that you're drawing. Glow effects are really fun to do, and I've done glow effect, but basically glow is pretty fun to use. It makes the color much lighter than if it was just normal or overlay. You should always experiment with these options. It's really fun to experiment, like to find which effects work for you and stuff like that. It's really cool. So it's also helpful to experiment. It helps to learn how the layers work and how the effects work and how you can incorporate them in your work. The last thing in this panel I want to go over is these little checkbox options here. So again, I'm going to go to my little ball. I'm going to make a ball. This time it's going to be red. Protect alpha. Protect alpha is a little hard to explain. If I have this box checked, I can erase what's in it, but I can't add anything more to it. So if I'm going outside of the line here, but I'm not adding any dark red unless I'm inside of what I already colored. That's basically protect alpha. It's better to show it than to try and explain it. Same thing for clipping. Clipping is basically what you want to do if you're adding markings to a character after you've added your base color. So to use clipping, you want to add a new layer and have it above the layer you're going to draw over. It acts just like Protect Alpha, but it's on a different layer. If I were to remove clipping, it would just be its own layer. So I always usually keep clipping on if I'm doing something like this. Lock layer is locking the layer. Basically, I can't alter the layer, I can't delete it, and I can't merge it. I can duplicate it, but it also gives me another locked layer. So I can't move the layer at all. I can still use it, but I can't delete it, and I can hide it, etc. Basically, I've been showing what it is already, but I will go over it one more time. The dot next to your drawing here is the hide layer. So it doesn't delete your layer, and instead just hides it so you can't alter it or access it. So if I were to go on here, I wouldn't be able to draw on it because the layer is hidden. It doesn't alter the layer and it doesn't delete the layer, but you can still delete a layer this way. So be careful by hiding versus locking and hiding. Hiding is good for when you finished your line art and you want to look and see, make sure if it's good, you know, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to hide the layer to just preview what it looks like without the sketch. It can be easy to not see any mistakes that you're making with your line art if you don't preview it without the sketch. So you want to make sure you're doing that pretty often. And again, I don't remember if I actually said this again, but if you accidentally delete a layer, you can undo to get the layer back by doing Command or Control Z, or just go and edit and undo. That will basically undo what you did. Hopefully this tutorial was a little bit more clear. I will no longer be responding to comments on my last video on the subject, so if you have any questions, comment them on this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like it and comment down below telling me that you liked it. You can also donate to my Ko-fi, link in the description, to help out my channel. I'm currently saving up for a new editing software. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video that I make. Bye!